on YouTube. So I know I haven't made a video the past 2 days or so because I've pretty much just been playing the Gauntlet and recovering and staying up 18 hours or 16 hours straight of playing the game for multiple days is kind of draining after a while. So just wanted to give a quick little update of how the character went and how it felt like to play in the Gauntlet and some stuff I learned about it. So this is pretty much my stash. I did have a character at level 18 in the end. And I was going to try to make a shadow and push the ladder, but it just wasn't really fun enough for me. And playing traps, it seemed okay in the beginning, but I just didn't really like the playstyle after trying it a little bit more. And I also heard that exiles say that traps and mines was just not very good for bossing and required perfect play, even though its damage was really, really high. So let's see how the stats looked at the end. So you can see I pretty much had a lot of currency. I did end up 6-linking a hunter bow. I had a 6-link hunter bow in the end. I think it was over here or something. Or I don't really know where it went. But oh yeah, right here. So you can see I had another gear set ready for a reroll on the ranger, but I just didn't feel like doing it and it would take too much time to get to 95. But it was definitely doable. I am going to show the def in the Gauntlet. It was at rank, I think it was like rank 2 or 3 for the ranger. And it was kind of sad. And delve is actually pretty dangerous, especially if you only do softcore ZHP delving. You don't really have an idea of what is actually super dangerous because everything just one-shots you, right? So everything is dangerous, but like you say, you live and learn. And that is pretty good. It is a shame that they decided to add in delve into the Gauntlet because delve is kind of something that they have omitted for the past like couple leagues, so it kind of sucks, but it is a necessity because it is part of the game and they actually enjoy it. But the way you play delving hardcore supposedly is you pretty much just log out as soon as you complete every single node, and that's just something I should have done. I do think I would have been killed sooner or later from logging out at every single node because packet loss is a real issue. If you watch a lot of people play PoE in hardcore, one of the main things is that they go log out. And then the first thing you do, you try to log back into the game. Well, you have to, so a lot of the logouts use this like macro, right? And it immediately brings your login screen. And then when you try to re-log back in, it says connecting to server and it hangs for like a couple seconds. And then during those couple seconds, which can last up to 6 seconds, I believe, you're still in the game. So that's why I'm pretty hesitant about logging out if I can help it over and over again. I didn't really know logging out was going to be that important. But you'll see what happens in the def. So now I'm going to go over the gear I had on my character before I died. And pretty much the build in the end. Because I do think the build is capable of doing all the bosses. And Darky did try to do all the bosses. But I think he died twice because of flame dash charges. So these are my 2 new characters in standard. SSF standard, that is a mode I would never usually play. So you can see this character is pretty beefy, 7,028 health. It actually has a 400 ward, so pretty nice buffer. And there are some pretty big problems that I ended up making with the build. And number one is probably not getting fertile catalysts. And I'm gonna go talk about that in the next section, which is things I learned in Gauntlet and what I will do next time differently. But let's just go over the gear actually. So this is a bow, +1, +2, 13% attack speed, and crafted chaos damage over time multi. The way you make this bow is you use essence, dread essence, and with +2 bow gems until you get an open prefix and 1 open suffix. And then you craft on cannot roll attack mods with the suffix, and then you exalt it, or you can use a Leo slam to save and exalt, and you will get +1 gems guaranteed. And the reason that is because +1 gems is actually the only non-attack mod for bows, so it actually ends up being quite nice. And then after that, you just craft on chaos damage over time multi instead of the cannot roll attack mods. It is lucky I got 13% attack speed. You could make a better bow by doing prefixes cannot be changed, scour, and then do multi-mod and reforce to get and multi-mod, and then craft on chaos damage over time multi and attack speed. And that actually allows you to get the same bow without getting lucky on the attack speed. So this helm, it's actually pretty nuts. I'm actually really sad I lost this. So this is not really like crazy, but it's a T1 life, and it also has T2 ward on it. And I crafted on fizz damage for hits taken as fire. And then it has chaos res, fire res, lightning res. The way I made this helm was I used I think a dread essence or something, or whatever the chaos essence is, MV essence. And then I ended up getting fire res, and then I exalted the lightning res on with Leo. So Leo is actually pretty important, especially since your exalts are pretty massively important for multi mods or stuff like that, or doing crafts. So this amulet is actually the best part of my gear. This is actually a really insane amulet because of the resist it provides and the +1 level of chaos gems, and it has 77 life. Definitely the crown jewel of my gear, and it's just sad I wasn't able to actually do any bossing. So this item I just used Reforged Chaos on Harvest until I got it, and it took a lot, I think like 50 to 100 or something like that. But eventually I got it. So getting a Jade Amulet, not very good. You want a Strength and Int base if possible. Because Strength and Int is an issue. You see our Int is 124, and that makes us have to run a lower level Flame Dash and lower level Vault Blight or Skitterbot. So it's just not a very ideal base, but it's just something I got from Gwenin, I think. I just kept doing it, and it eventually gave me a Hunter Jade Amulet, right? So pretty lucky. This is the same thing. So you can see a lot of the endgame gearing comes down to getting Hunter bases. So you need a Hunter Quiver, Hunter Amulet, Hunter Ring, and Hunter Belt. So this Hunter Quiver is the same thing. You reforge Chaos until I got Life, T1 Chaos, and then I got a Resist. This Quiver could have been a lot better, but I didn't have a backup to roll. And it is pretty important, I realized, to have backup gear to be able to roll. Because having backup gear to roll means that you can upgrade your pieces slowly. And then this is the same thing. This is a Despair Ring, and it requires another Hunter Ring. I think I got this with Rog. So you pretty much use Rog and Gwenin to get all of your influence bases. So this ring I just did Reforged Caster and got it. Now this chest piece I actually crafted with whatever the thing is in Betrayal that lets you use like a lot of transmutes, alts, and regals and exalts. So I actually transmute life and then got resist, and then I regaled another resist, and then I double exalted it to get reduced attribute requirements and reflect fizz. So kind of unfortunate. So I also got the enchant from Harvest that grants life for maximum quality, because evasion is nowhere near as important as having more life. So this chest is kind of interesting. It's probably the first time I've ever made an item with betrayal crafting, so I deemed this item actually a minor miracle. And for people asking how you get the base, you pretty much just do Turn's End and Turn's End exotic goods with the Invader. It actually ends up dropping a good amount of 6 links. I think I got 3 6 links this league. So it's kind of deterministic in farming the 6 link. It is very lucky that it is an evasion base and it's what I need. But I think at this point, you can pretty much use any base, because you can use harvest colors to change it so that you can get the right colors that you need. So this Vermilion Ring is something you get in T11 plus maps in Proxima. And I eventually got it. It's pretty bad. I think it's just a Reforged Life or Reforged Chaos. And ideally you want T1 Life with this and more resist. But pretty much just settled for this, as I just wanted to use a Vermilion Ring. I used this Ward gloves. And you can see with these 2 ward items, I have an extra 400 buffer a lot of times. And 400 life or 400 buffer that's up pretty often since we're evasion base is very strong. Especially if you're able to combine it with an Iron Flask that you can enchant with, use on Savage Hit. So it saves you a lot of times. It might have actually saved me in my death. But it's just unfortunate. It's SSF. You don't really get the items you need. But I did get an Overflowing Chalice though. So this item here was made through essences again. So it seems like there's 2 ways to craft items in SSF. Essences and harvest. Oh yeah, there's another way. Fossils are pretty much just like harvest crafting, except you have to delve to get it. Now this belt is okay. It's like a T1 life belt, double resist and % damage. I did have a hunter leather belt I was trying to craft with fertile catalyst, but it just took me forever to get reforged more likely when I had a life and % life base. So it's just kind of sad, but that's just how it works. Sometimes you craft something a lot and it takes forever. You don't get it. This pair of boots, Aziri Steps, I got it from doing Aziri on my first kill. And it's actually pretty good, pretty well rolled. Max spell dodge and pretty high life. They get it enchanted with 50% chance to avoid being stunned. So you can see here, Stun avoidance is like 46%, and then with this node right here, we are pretty much stun immune, right? Well, if we've killed recently, so that actually ends up being pretty big for mapping. So overall, you can see most of the gear does follow like a progression pattern, and that's kind of fun in SSF. There really is like a progression pattern for obtaining your gear. So for this character, you're pretty much just crafting gear through harvest, crafting gear through essences, and these are pretty much farmed in Lex Proxima and Hayward Hamlet. And then you can also delve to get fossils and resonators to craft more. And then for this league, the lead mechanic, Gwenin and Rog were really strong for getting influence bases and crafting some gear to make you be able to progress the maps. And then for card farming, you wanted to farm the Porcupine to get the short bow. And then getting a 6 link is kind of deterministic because throughout the event, you'll get 1500 fusings to use in a delve to get a 6 link, right? So it just ends up kind of being like a pretty like deterministic way to finish off your gear. However, there is a lot of RNG to it. I did end up farming all the clusters, and I would have swapped to a cluster setup at 97 if I did not die. Basically, this is the tree that I've been running. Not really much changes. Would probably drop this whole entire upper part right here for bossing and then use a cluster, and it would actually end up being more life overall and more damage. And I would probably try to fix up the chest so that I wouldn't need to get elemental focus and anoint, and then I can anoint like growth and decay or atrophy or corruption. So you can see a lot of different changes, and it's a shame I didn't get the boss on the character, but I hope that going through all this gear really show you the mindset you have as an SSF player, both in crafting your gear and establishing like certain objectives that you need to do in order to, to finally get your character able to boss. And it is a long journey. So it seems like this website is going to have a battle pass, right? That sounds pretty cool. So the battle pass, you can predict who will end up winning. So Steel Mage did win, but now I wanted to talk about what I think about SSF and whether you should try playing it too in the future. So in the end, this league, the Gauntlet mode was hardcore, right? And hardcore, I feel like, is an okay experience. It does slow the game down a lot, and it is pretty annoying to play the game in a hardcore mode the entire time. Just because you're always on edge, you have to pretty much always play perfectly. You can't use certain MTX because it clutters up your screen too much. And it's just some people just don't enjoy it, right? Some people enjoy the rush, but other people just enjoy having the ability to just chill out and map and not having to worry about losing everything. But it depends on how much risk you want to take or how much risk you enjoy. Like some people live for the rush of staying alive, and some people hate losing progress. So it just depends on what you are, what type of player you are. And I do think that there's room for both. Like some people can try out the Gauntlet for a couple days and it should be fine. Other people probably won't really like it that much, but it is all up to what you enjoy. Now, on the topic of SSF's progression is extremely, extremely slow because you just have no way of buying any gear. Like all of this gear, you could probably buy all of this stuff within the first 2 days for like a couple chaos or like not even that much for the stuff, right? And you'll probably put together this whole gear set in like a couple X at most. But for playing SSF, this type of gear would take you days to farm. It took me like 3-4 days to farm it all, and this is with like 15, 16, 18 hour play times. And it just takes a very, very long time to get gear that you normally wouldn't even bat an eye for. But in that same regard, it also gives you this chase feeling of items that you normally would never have thought would be chase items, right? Like I was so happy to see a Porcupine card drop for the short bow, and that's just something that you would never even, it might not even be on my filter. And that's like just an experience that you can't really explain. And that is why a lot of SSF hardcore players play SSF. It's because of the lack of chase items. So they kind of create chase items themselves by playing SSF. Now, what that means is that SSF will take a lot longer for you to actually beat the game. And it will also take you a lot longer to finish builds. So if you have a lot of time and you really want to play PoE for a longer amount of time, then SSF is a really, really good way to approach the game. Now, I'm going to talk about one of the bad parts about SSF, and this is actually something that is probably a pretty big deal breaker for a lot of people. You can see that SSF has horrendous build diversity. You can see Spectral Shield Throw is 31%, and then SSF Hardcore is actually better somehow than SSF softcore. So the main thing is that SSF has a problem where build diversity is absolutely awful because you just don't have access to certain uniques. Like say you wanted to play like the Forbidden Right Totem build and you couldn't get like a Soul Mantle or Rain of Splinters, and it's very likely you won't find uniques for a long time. Obviously, if you intend to play SSF throughout the entire league, you could probably make every single build, as you will find most of the uniques through the course of a league. However, a lot of people don't have that much time to play. They don't really want to spend time to to grind for a random item to be able to get to use for their build. A lot of people just want to play a certain build that they see. So SSF is kind of really bad for build diversity. Like you'll see the people that will always play the same type of builds, and that's not really a problem. And that's not really anything about the build being super broken. It's just that it's a build that's very non-deterministic and needing like super crazy uniques in order to function. So that's why SSD Gladiator is so good, because you don't really need anything besides a high armor shield. And of course getting the enchant is important, but that's really something you can kind of farm for. But having like some uniques that aren't really like T1 uniques, and if they don't have a div card, you are pretty much out of luck and at the mercy of Chris Wilson, whether you will get the item or not. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you're going to play SSF, you're probably going to have to play a pretty cookie cutter build. You're going to have to play a build that doesn't really require any uniques or super rare T1 uniques. It's probably something that you might not find throughout the whole league. And that's not even to mention, like, if you want to make a build ever with like a league defining unique like Hate Forge, you can pretty much completely forget about it. This league, however, Expedition had no good uniques that really came out. So that's another thing, is that some build types that will be really popular in Trade League, you pretty much will never be able to play. And the main thing is SSF just draws out the game a lot. So if you want to enjoy the league for longer, you don't want to deal with the problem of trade. And the problem of trade is actually the biggest difference. You get to play the game so much more in SSF compared to actual Trade League. In SSF, while playing the race, I pretty much had almost 90% uptime. So while I was at my computer and playing on PoE, I was pretty much mapping. There was no downtime responding to 40 trade messages or trying to check my live trades to see what was going on. It was pure unadulterated fun while mapping, or maybe not fun for Toxic Rain, but you get the idea. I was just playing PoE instead of playing the trading game or playing a mini economics game. A lot of times PoE does feel like I'm playing a stock market simulator. I'm trying to buy items to flip. I'm trying to find a good deal. And sometimes you want to just leave that bargain shopping to real life and not bring it to PoE. And if you want to just not worry about the economic side of Path of Exile and just worry about being able to use your currency, use your exalt, and not have to worry about the intrinsic value of what it might be able to purchase if you're able to sell the item, then PoE SSF might be for you. But that's just my 2 cents about the pros and cons of SSF in Path of Exile. I hope everyone liked the death that you saw. It was pretty brutal, not gonna lie. Did not really know that golems and delve did that much damage. Of course, anything that does a lot of fizz damage will get scaled insanely with the Gauntlet mod, so that's kind of sad, but we'll learn next time. Next time we go to delve, we'll log out immediately. It is unlucky we got killed because I got hit by like 3 or 2 attacks in a row, but it's my fault. Should have logged out immediately. That death did feel a lot more fair than the Zaro death, and that was my mistake purely. But this time around in the Gauntlet, I felt like played pretty well. Was pretty much #1 alive Ranger for a long time, but it was kind of weird. I didn't enjoy the skill enough to sacrifice sleep for. In the past, I would just sleep for like 2-3 hours and then keep playing. But this time around, really hard to motivate myself to play a skill as bland as Toxic Rain and just play it on low sleep. But it is what it is. Next time I'll find a better skill. SST Gladiator should have been the one I should have played. Didn't know that it could have actually killed the bosses. Turns out that having max block is probably better than max evasion because you don't get one-shotted by fizz damage. because you actually have armor. In the end, you have avoidance. Both have max avoidance, but turns out the Gladiator is just a lot tankier. But that's my 2 cents on the Gauntlet and what I think about SSF in general. But thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry about no videos in the past 2 days. We'll get back to daily videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do. Bye.